Joining us now on the phone is President Donald Trump from the White House tonight. Mr. President, thank you, sir, for being with us.
Well, thank you very much. And how good is Mark?
Mark's on fire tonight. There's no doubt about it.
He's on fire.
That's why I call him the Great One. I want to start. We have an election in 117 days, Mr. President, and, you know, your campaign came out with an ad. The issue of law and order and safety and security are now key in this country. We'll go over Joe Biden's comments, but your campaign released this ad. I'm of the view that nobody pursues happiness if you're not safe and secure. Let's roll tape.
You have reached the 911 police emergency line. Due to defunding of the police department, we're sorry, but no one is here to take your call. If you're calling to report a rape, please press 1. To report a murder, press 2. To report a home invasion, press 3. For all other crimes, leave your name and number, and someone will get back to you. Our estimated wait time is currently 5 days. Goodbye.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Mr. President, I'm going to read the comments of Joe Biden, if I may. He said, surplus military equipment for law enforcement. By the way, they used it in Ferguson and Baltimore. They don't need that. The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. I haven't noticed that. It's like a military invading. They don't know anybody. They've become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting the people. Then asked about funding. Do you agree we can redirect the funding? Absolutely. Okay. Mr. President, I would argue that no American could be happy if they're not safe and secure or pursue happiness without safety and security.
Well, I agree with that 100%. And we need safety. We need security. We can't defund our police, and we can't abolish our police. They want to abolish our police. And as far as the surplus equipment, I've given out hundreds of millions of dollars. This is stuff that was sitting in storage houses all over the country. It wasn't even old, but it was never going to be used again. It was gathering dust, and I gave it out to all of our police forces all over the country, saved many, many police lives, and many lives, I think, period. It was really, a lot of it was protective equipment, and I know that President Obama and Biden didn't want to give it out. They thought it was terrible to give it out. It made the police look too strong, and I gave it out, and I have been thanked by every police department.
Mr. President, while the Summer of Love zone turned into a shooting zone, and I'm going to run some videotape. One is a man shot while walking a 6-year-old little girl in the Bronx in New York, assassinated in broad daylight. Another, a gunman opened fire in a Bronx apartment building. Then I'll show on this very show live our own Steve Harrigan interviewing protesters that took over a city block in Atlanta. That resulted in the death of an 8-year-old girl 2 weeks later. You see what's happening. Shootings up, violent crime is up, murder is up, 130% shootings up in New York City. You see the statistics in Chicago every weekend. How do you react to that?
Well, first of all, New York City is not recognizable. Crime is way up. Shootings are way up. Murder is way up. It's just unbelievable. Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, and we are looking at it very seriously because we're going to have to do something. We've asked them, we're really supposed to be asked to come in and help the federal government, and we have the greatest people in the world, and we can solve it. But we're supposed to be asked, so the mayor or the governor of Illinois should be asking, but they don't want to ask. And you look every weekend and every week in Chicago, it's just numbers that are not believable. Atlanta's starting to have some problems. So we're ready to act, and at some point we may have to act anyway. We may have to do it sooner rather than later.
Let's talk about the issue of acting. I had a source that told me, I was not able to confirm it, that one of the reasons that the Seattle mayor finally acted is that they were given notice that if they didn't act, that you were going to. Is there any truth to that?
100%. We were going in very soon. We let them know that, and they all of a sudden, they didn't want that. So they went in before we got there, but we were going in very shortly, very soon, and we would have taken the chop, I call it chop. We would have taken it back very easily, but they went in, and frankly, the people just gave up. They were tired. They had it for a long period of time, but because of the fact that we were going to go in. Now, if you look at Minneapolis, after 4 or 5 days of horror, we called them. We said, you got to get out the National Guard. We insisted that they do it. When the National Guard finally got out, they walked through it like a knife goes through butter. That was the end of their problem. That was it. It was a great job done by the National Guard. And, yeah, we were all set to go into Seattle. Frankly, I looked forward to it.
Mr. President, Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years. Barack Obama's hometown is Chicago. Every weekend, we get these statistics. Lawrence Jones, who is our 2020 reporter on this program, actually interviewed the father. He lost a 7-year-old little girl. I don't know how you recover from something like that. But Biden and Barack Obama, President Obama, Vice President Biden, they barely ever talked about the violence in Barack Obama's hometown. What specifically can you do? I know you've offered to help New York City. I know you've offered to help Chicago. I know you offered to help Seattle. I know you did help Minneapolis and you did help D.C. But when they keep refusing your help, what are your options?
So first of all, I saw the interview, and he was a lovely man. I spoke to him at length and with his friend, who's a great guy, too.
Horace Lorenzo Anderson, yes, sir. His son
I
killed.
actually invited them down to the White House at some point when they get adjusted, because it is so tough. I mean, what he's going through is so tough. And he was treated very badly. They didn't even tell him what had happened, when it had happened. Very sad thing. But I did speak to him, and I had a great but very sad conversation. And so he'll be coming down when he's ready. He'll be coming down to the White House. I will say, look, they have to be tough. They have to be smart. What's going on there? And, the Chicago police is terrific. The New York police, New York's finest, they're just not being allowed to do their job. They don't want to do anything because they'll end up with lots of bad things happening to them. They're not letting them do the job. And I dealt a lot with Mayor de Blasio. I was very nice to Mayor de Blasio. I got him ventilators when he needed them. I got him hospital help when he needed it. I got him everything he needed. I got him the gowns. I got him the masks. I got him everything, the shields. I got that man everything. I spoke to him many times. He couldn't have been nicer. And then he throws a big Black Lives Matter sign right down in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and all merchants along Fifth Avenue are furious. They're furious. And the whole city is furious. The city is a city that's enraged. And but everything
but nobody's safe.
It was almost a test, Sean. But I was so good to him and to Governor Cuomo like nobody's ever been good. And all you end up doing out of that place is get prosecuted and have a lot of trouble. So New York is not the place that it was. Everyone's leaving. They're moving to Florida. They're moving to other places. It's very sad, actually, to see what happened.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm the only idiot that stays here. I need to get my contract changed so I can get the hell out of here myself, to be honest. In 1984, the question came up, especially after the first debate President Reagan had at the time with Walter Mondale, the age question. Let me play a montage of, let's say, not some of the finest moments of Joe Biden, and I want your reaction. And the question will be, does he have the mental alertness? Does he have the strength and stamina? What I believe is the hardest job in the world. It's not what I do. Being president, I would argue, is a hell of a lot harder, but here's Joe Biden.
The scale of the loss is staggering. I don't know whose phone that is, but the scale of the loss is staggering. It's been 2 months since Congress gave him that money. Introduce me. Okay. Am I on? Yes. Hey, good evening, Tampa. Thanks so much for tuning in. Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. My name is Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over if you'd like to see help out. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330. We choose truth over facts. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear words. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Donald Trump does pose an extra threat to this. It's not hypothetical. Why in God's name should someone who's clipping coupons in the stock market in fact, pay a lower tax rate than someone who, in fact, is, like I said, a school teacher and a firefighter?
I think my personal favorite is, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created and women are created equal by the thing. You know the thing. That would be God who created everything. But, Mr. President, in your view, does he have the alertness, trying to be charitable here, the strength and stamina? You're in the job. I would argue the toughest job in the world. That's my position. I've held that for many decades.
Well, I don't think it's the age, because I was with Bernie Marcus. I think he's 91. He's so sharp. He's as sharp as ever. He's great. The founder of Home Depot, one of the founders, great guy. And I deal with other people in their late 80s, early 90s, and they're 100% mentally so sharp. Sheldon Adelson as an example, and others, many others I could, and they're mentally 100%. But Joe is just, look, let's face it, he's been taken over by the radical left. He has no clue what they're doing and what they're getting him into. This is worse than Bernie Sanders at his best. And you look at the deal they made with Bernie Sanders now in the group, it's all crazy radical left stuff. And Joe's never going to be able to fight it, even if he disagreed with it, which I actually don't think he does. I think there's an expression, an old expression was used badly a long time ago in politics. I think they brainwashed him. They brainwashed him. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what he's doing. And our country will suffer. Our stock markets will crash. Bad things will happen. They will defund the police. They will abolish the police. It will be maybe a backlash, or maybe it'll just go to hell like Venezuela.
You hear stories now, and Thomas Friedman in the New York Times is wanting to now create all new conditions for Joe Biden to agree to debate you. Now, he apparently says that he has many cognitive tests. He's tested all the time cognitively. Maybe he'll release those records, and maybe he'll release his medical records. Everybody wants to seemingly see everything about you. Now, would you agree to any new conditions, or does he have to debate like it's always happened? And do you think he's trying to back out of debating you?
Well, yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. But, he meant the COVID tests. The COVID test. He didn't mean cognitive. He meant COVID.
No, he said cognitive. I'm pretty sure he went on to...
He didn't mean that because, you don't have those tests that often. He said, I take them all the time. And no, he meant COVID, but I think he was confused by the question and the words and everything else. He didn't mean that because he hasn't taken any cognitive tests because he couldn't pass one. I actually took one when very recently when I was, the radical left was saying, is he all there? Is he all there? And I proved I was all there because I aced it. I aced the test, and he should take the same exact test, a very standard test. I took it at Walter Reed Medical Center in front of doctors, and they were very surprised. They said, that's an unbelievable thing. Rarely does anybody do what you just did. But he should take that same test. But, no, he has been totally taken over, and I think it's because he doesn't understand what's going on. I watched him today. I watched him over the last couple of weeks. And, I look forward to debating him, but it looks like he wants to try and get out of the debates. I think we're doing very well in the polls. I think if you look at the different states, I think we're doing very well. We're rapidly rising. I was with the president of Mexico yesterday. We had an incredible day. We have tremendous Hispanic support. We have tremendous African-American support. I think we have great support, period. You look at the boats, you look at the bikers, you look at everything that's happening in our country. There's great spirit. Spirit like nobody's ever seen before, actually. And there's no spirit for Joe.
Let me ask you about the recent rise in outbreaks. And we had talked about this all throughout the beginning of coronavirus, and that was that Dr. Oz said it often on both radio and TV with me, that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, that there are going to be hot spots and a reemergence, et cetera. We're now seeing such things happen, this time in the Sun Belt. Florida Governor DeSantis was on. One of the things that he did differently is he went in and protected the nursing homes and the elderly care facilities. He's doing the same. And I was a little bit surprised at the numbers in Florida in terms of the ages of people now that are contracting the virus, much, much younger. On the one hand, you don't want anyone to contract it, but on the other hand, we know that the people that are most vulnerable to this virus for severe illness or death are those that are elderly, those with underlying conditions, or those with compromised immune systems, and it does not impact young people anywhere near the way it does older people. What do you make of these hot spots, as we call them, in Florida and Texas and other states, and Dr. Fauci's comments?
Well, first of all, the mortality rate, and Dr. Fauci's a nice man, but he's made a lot of mistakes. Like, you don't have to ban them coming in from very infected China. I did it anyway, and we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. I banned Europe from coming in when Italy and when France and Spain were having all the problems, and we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. A lot of people said, don't do it. They've been wrong about a lot of things, including face masks. Maybe they're wrong, maybe not, but a lot of them said, don't wear a mask, don't wear a mask, and now they're saying wear a mask. So a lot of mistakes were made, a lot of mistakes. Let me just make one statement, though. We do testing like nobody's ever done testing. And when we test, the more you test, the more cases you find. Other countries, you know when they test, and I ask them all, they test when somebody's not feeling well or when somebody walks into a hospital. So they don't have tests. They have tests that are very, very limited. We have these massive 40, 45 million people have been tested. It's a record, and our tests are the best. So we have cases all over the place. Most of those cases immediately get better. They get, people, they're young people, they have sniffles, and 2 days later they're fine, and they're not sick, they're asymptomatic. A lot of things happen, and what we're doing is with all of these tests that we're doing all over the country, everybody test, pull up parking lots, everything else. What we've done is we've created a tremendous number of cases. Everybody else, can you imagine if China tested like we test? They don't. Can you imagine if other big countries, the bigger countries, tested like we, or Germany? We've tested many, many, many times, even proportionately, the number of people that other countries have tested. But I was with, as an example, a great gentleman yesterday, the president of Mexico, and they're having a hard time, especially in Mexico City. They test when somebody's sick or when somebody goes into the hospital, and that's a different way of doing it, and it's just fine. And we are testing and creating. It's the greatest thing that ever happened for the opposite party, but we're doing something that nobody's ever done to the extent, and we're doing a great job. But we have a mortality rate, think of this, that's tenfold better than any other. What we're doing is incredible. If you look, you've heard the numbers, tenfold. We have fewer people dying, and our people have done an incredible job. And one other thing, we're very well on the way to a vaccine, very well on the way therapeutically. Therapeutics, we're very well on the way. We've got a lot of great things happening. We already do. We do have some that are very effective, or at least effective. And a lot of very good things have happened. A lot of really good things. They're doing a great job. But the testing is just showing up all these cases. And if you turn the news on, you'll see it's always the word cases. They don't talk about death, because deaths are way down. They talk about cases, all the time cases. And those cases get better. And they, in most cases, literally in most cases, they automatically cure. They automatically get better.
Joe Biden revealed in a previous rare, a rare appearance out of his basement bunker, but he revealed that everybody around him, including his Secret Service, are tested every day. I know, having interviewed you, for example, before the Wisconsin town hall that we did, that I had to have a test before I got around the president. I think, by the way, that's the right thing to do for both you and Joe Biden. That's my own opinion, but you're the two people that don't need to wear a mask, and there's been a lot made over the fact that, well, Donald Trump doesn't wear a mask. You're the two people, I would argue, that probably don't need to wear the mask, where the rest of the public might benefit from it. I saw it anecdotally I was at the epicenter of this in my local grocery store. They all wore masks, and thank God no cashier and no guy stocking the shelves ever got sick in that store, and I'd ask them every week. What are your thoughts on not only mask wearing, but also, do we have enough PPE for Houston and other hot spots as they arise?
Well, we do, and we've done a great job in that. We've created a supply chain that's incredible. On ventilators, we're making thousands a week. On PPE, we are doing great. We do, but, I think it's fine to wear a mask if it makes you feel comfortable. I think under certain conditions, like when you're going into a hospital, I'll be going to Walter Reed to see some of our great soldiers that have been injured, badly injured, and also see some of our COVID workers, the people that have done such a great job. And I expect to be wearing a mask when I go into Walter Reed. You're in a hospital setting. I think it's a very appropriate thing. I have no problem with a mask. I don't think you need one when you're tested all the time. Everybody around you is tested. You're quite a distance. You talk about social distancing. You're away. Like I watched Biden walk into a stage where there's practically, like today, there was almost nobody in the room. He's making a speech, and they have these massive circles, and the circles are very far away from each other to start off with, and then they have just a few people in the audience, and he makes a speech, and he walks onto the stage wearing this massive mask. There's nobody on the stage, and then he takes it off. He likes to have it hang off, usually the left ear. I think it makes him feel good, frankly, if you want to know the truth, and I guess that's okay. But, when there's nobody around, you don't really have to do that. But he feels it's good, and I'm okay with it if he wants to do that. He's got the largest mask I think I've ever seen. It covers up a big proportion
you'll be wearing
of his
a mask
face,
at Walter
and I
Reed?
think he feels he looks good that way.
I walk around with a mask in New York, and I look better. There's no doubt about it. So you will be wearing a mask at Walter Reed on Friday?
Yeah, I think if I'm in the right setting, if I'm with soldiers, people that, I don't want to spread anything, and it's a lot of it's you spreading, not
right.
them spreading, it's you spreading. No, and I don't want to cause a problem for anybody. No, I have no problem with masks, but it's got to be done at the right time. Now, I'm usually fairly isolated as the president, so I'm fairly isolated. Everybody's tested before they come in.
I wasn't allowed to go around you until I got a test. So
No, I know, but they do a great job. They really do a great job. No, I have no problem with masks. It's up to you.
Let me ask you this. I know when you built all of these hospitals, you brought in the Navy ship for New York, you built the hospital, you built 3,000 beds at the Javits Center. They only used 1,000. They only used like 200 on the Comfort. But you also manned those beds. You also provided the PPE, but you also converted both the ship and the Javits Center, 3,000
right.
beds. They only used 1,000. To COVID capability. Now, my understanding is you had to change the ventilation system to actually make that happen.
Right.
Does that, and there are reports maybe the RNC is exploring an outdoor venue for the convention in Jacksonville. Are you convinced, or the experts telling you the ventilation systems need to be up to a certain standard? I'm not an expert on it.
Well, ship ventilation systems very much, they circularize, and they're very much under review, to be honest with you. But we did a great job with the Comfort. We did a great job with the Mercy of the Comfort. In Los Angeles, we had a great ship, a sister ship, a really terrific operation. But when we moved it in, they didn't send us people. And then they said, could you convert it to COVID? Because it wasn't meant for that. It was meant for operations. But it wasn't getting used, and so the governor asked if we could convert it for COVID, and we did, and they didn't use it. And we took the Javits Center, did a phenomenal job in record-setting time. A matter of days, we converted it into a massive, like 2,600 units. And they didn't use it, or very little did they use it. I said, what are you doing with all of these requests, and then you're not using it? What's going on? And if they would have used that instead of nursing homes, they wouldn't have lost thousands of people in the nursing homes. They could have put people in Javits Center, or they could have put them on the ship, but they put them back in nursing homes, and they were badly infected, and then they ended up hitting the people that are most vulnerable, and thousands of people died.
It was the worst decision, and it was made by New York Governor Cuomo and Pennsylvania Governor Wolf and Murphy in New Jersey and Michigan Governor Whitmer. Let me ask you about today's Supreme Court decisions and rulings. Mark Levin was talking about it as it relates to sort of a mixed bag of verdicts, 7-2 decisions, and one would send things back to the lower court, but open up the possibility of at least some of your taxes being revealed to a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and the other saying no to Congress. They don't have a right to that information. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm under tax audit, okay? So, I mean, the IRS treats me just like they used to treat the Tea Party, except worse. and I'm under tax audit. I have been for a long period of time. We made a deal a long time ago, and once I ran for politics, that deal was like we didn't make it. So I'm under a continuing audit, and anybody that did that or showed that before you have it finalized, but they treat me horribly, the IRS, horribly. It's a disgrace what's happened. We had a deal done. In fact, I guess it was signed even. And once I ran or once I won or somewhere back a long time ago, everything was like, well, let's start all over again. It's a disgrace. So I was disappointed, and at the same time, it was because I think a president should get protection from thousands of prosecutors out there, thousands all over the country. They could go after you, and you're supposed to be running the country. I'll tell you, Justice Alito wrote a totally brilliant decision. He wrote something today that really got
Smart
it.
man.
Justice Thomas, likewise, was great. They were the two that came. So it was. Look, it basically sends it all back, and we start all over again. I guess that's what it means.
Let me ask you about some new information we have as it relates to the deep state, as we call it. We now know that George Papadopoulos, that exculpatory evidence was withheld. We now know in the case of General Flynn, exculpatory evidence was withheld. And I'll get specifically into that January 5th meeting in the White House with Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And still, I mean, the judges, even the Department of Justice said it's time to let that case go. Both parties, when they say that, usually it ends it, but the judge has a vendetta clearly against General Flynn. Then we have, I thought we were guaranteed the right to a fair and impartial jury, and we discovered that the jury foreperson in the Roger Stone case literally was speaking out publicly in the most negative terms against Roger personally and any Trump supporter. The judge refused to grant him a new trial, which to me is unfathomable. I would give that right to every American. If somebody's biased on the jury, that case is out. And then you have, of course, they dragged out of mothballs the Manafort issue. There's been some reports, especially about Roger Stone. Do you have any plans to either commute sentences or any plans to pardon any of these men?
Well, first of all, President Obama and Joe Biden spied on my campaign. They knew everything that was going on. They were in the rooms when everyone was talking about it. These people all work for them. I know how the White House works. I guess I can say now better than anybody. And they knew everything that was going on. They spied on my campaign. I said it a long time ago. Nobody believed me, and now it turns out to be fact. So let's see what happens. But they were the head of it, and it was Comey and Brennan and everybody else, Clapper, and those guys all lied to Congress, and bad things happened, and Strzok and Page, the two lovers, and many other people. When you look at, I could go down a list of lots of people. They were spying on my campaign. It was totally illegal. If that were the other way around, the people would be in jail for 50 years, and it would have started 2 years ago. It's a disgrace what's going on. We caught them 100%. As far as General Flynn, he's a great hero. He's a great gentleman. What they're doing to that man, they've destroyed that man, but he'll come back. He's going to come back. Roger Stone was treated very unfairly, unbelievably unfairly. And I watched that, and I thought it was incredible the way that man was treated.
He's about to go to jail, you know that.
Including with the jury forewoman it was disgraceful. And the judge, the way she treated him, I think it was a disgrace that they didn't give him a retrial, Roger Stone. And Papadopoulos, I mean, they have a tape of his conversation. If anything, he's like, it was a perfect, as I said about my conversation, I turned out to be right. It was a perfect conversation that Papadopoulos had, and they destroyed him, too, and put him in jail for 2 weeks. So these people and Paul Manafort, what they did to that man is a disgrace.
Have you thought about pardons or commutations at all?
I am always thinking. So you'll be watching like everybody else in this case. You'll be watching. But Roger Stone, Papadopoulos, Manafort, what they did to that man, putting him in solitary confinement. Al Capone, the great gangster, the ultimate gangster, was never in solitary confinement. What they did to him was just incredible. And, look, it's a very sad thing. Here's a group. We have them cold. They lied. They leaked. They did everything. We have them already. They could get more evidence. It doesn't matter. They have them cold. I hope that they act. I hope that Lindsey Graham does something with the Judiciary Committee. We have all the evidence they need. Now, maybe they're getting new stuff. I let them handle that. But the Judiciary Committee should act. And
I would say this.
You know, like people don't like to say it's President Obama. He knew everything. He was probably in charge of it or was in charge of it. Joe Biden, I don't know if he knows where he is, but he was there. He knew everything.
Well, he lied. Joe Biden lied to George Stephanopoulos when he said,
right.
I know nothing. But,
right.
the notes from Peter Strzok were clear about the January 5th meeting. Now, the case against Flynn was to be dropped on January the 4th. Strzok and Comey brought it back to life. But in that meeting in the Oval Office, we know that it was Biden that said, oh, what about bringing up the Logan Act from 1799?
That's
we
right.
know that Obama was saying maybe we shouldn't tell the incoming administration. Obama said we want our guys on this. Sally Yates testified she was shocked that Obama knew every aspect of the call. Add to that, we know that premeditated fraud was committed on the FISA court. We know there was Russian interference. We had a Clinton bought and paid for lying dossier. We know obstruction happened with her with the deleted emails and bleach-bitten hammers. And we know that there was a quid and a pro and a quo with Joe and Zero Experience Hunter. There's no doubt that there's, in my mind, a double standard. To me, one of the biggest opponents you have in 117 days is, well, I call them the media mob. What is your thoughts on the media these days? Because they don't seem to care about obstruction or Russian interference or quid pro quos if it's a Democrat.
And by the way, Christopher Steele was just adjudged guilty in London or wherever on what he said about other people with his fake dossier, his phony, disgusting dossier. And he's a part of it, too. There are many people that are a part of it that you didn't even mention. You don't have enough time. They've all been caught. Now, let's see what happens. But they've all been caught, and they spied on the campaign. And you could call it treason. You could call it many different things, but it's very serious. And so far, nothing's happened because
let me ask
the
you
other
about
side
that.
is vicious, and I guess the Republicans, they're just not vicious. They're just not. It's very sad to see, but we have some great ones, though. I'll tell you, when you see Jim Jordan and you see Meadows and you see Devin Nunes and you see many of them, Lee Zeldin, and Kevin is fantastic. Kevin McCarthy, what a job he's doing. We have some great ones, but they're straight players. They're very straight players, and the other side, they are not straight players. It's a disgrace what's happening, and then you look at what's going on in Democrat-run cities and how horrible it is. And the media is totally corrupt. When I say totally, largely. There are some very fine people I know in the media, some very honorable people, but largely it's corrupt. Not even fake, it's corrupt.
No, they never cared about the Russian dossier that was never verifiable because it was all false, used as a basis of a FISA warrant. You're correct. That was to get a FISA application to spy on your campaign, your transition team, and, in the words of the Attorney General Bill Barr, deep into your presidency. And we are awaiting the work of Prosecutor John Durham. We'll see where that goes. Attorney General Barr said that this is not about a report. It's a criminal investigation. But again, that is beyond, I guess, my pay grade. I asked you a question in Wisconsin, and you got criticized for the answer. I want to ask you again. You're now asking America in 117 days to give you a second term as President of the United States. What is your second term agenda?
Well, first of all, I didn't know I was criticized for that answer because it's a simple question. First of all, we're going to defeat the invisible enemy, and we're well on our way. And as again, I told you, the mortality rate is tenfold down. We're going to rebuild the economy. We're going to bring back jobs from all of these foreign lands that have stolen our jobs on horrible trade deals. We're going to continue to make great trade deals. We're going to finish rebuilding our wall. We're going to have that. It's going to be almost complete by the end of this year. Shortly thereafter, it's finished. It's made a tremendous difference. You see, we're doing record numbers on the border. Very few people are able to get through. We're rebuilding with our military. We've rebuilt the military, $2.5 trillion. We're fixing up the VA for our vets. What the job we've done there, between choice and accountability, we have choice where they can go out and get a doctor if they're sick. They don't have to wait for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks. So we're doing great with the vets, and the vets are loving Trump. We're protecting our Second Amendment, so important. We need more judges and more justices. You see that now with the Supreme Court more than ever. And the next president, I've had 2, and the next president's going to be able to pick 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever, but a lot of justices. And that means everything, whether it's for life or other things. I mean, it means so much. But protecting the Second Amendment, getting more judges, all of the things that we've done, nobody has done what this administration has done in the first 3.5 years. Nobody's even come close. When you look at everything that we're doing, now what we're doing is working on lowering drug prices and knocking out special interests because it's not easy. We're fighting for choice. We did it for the veterans. Now we're doing it for school, too. We want choice in school so a parent can take their child to a school of their choice, and that's happening very good, very, very well. And we have many things that we're doing and many things that we've already completed, and you can't do more than what we've done. I think we've set records on we actually set a record on judges. We're going to be, by the time of the end of this year, we'll be up to almost 300 federal judges, and that's a record. That's incredible, including D.C.
Where do you see the economy come November 3rd, Election Day? And in terms of, we talk about a V-shaped recovery. We broke a record in terms of retail sales. They expected a 9.5 million job loss. You got a 2.5 million job gain, right, followed up by a 5 million job gain.
Yep.
Personally, I didn't think we'd see numbers like that till the earliest of August. Where do you see the economy? Where will we be with the border wall? How many miles come November 3rd?
Okay, well, first of all, the border wall is doing incredibly well. We're moving along, and we are up to about 250 miles already. We'll have, by the end of the year, it'll be close to finished. It might take an extra couple of months, but we'll have it, and it's had a huge impact already because we're about halfway finished. The economy, it's the thing. The economy is starting to really do great. We're going to have a great third quarter. We're going to have a great fourth quarter. And next year is going to be the best, I think, one of the best years that we've ever had. And that's the way it looks. You know, the 2 job numbers that you mentioned, the 2.8 and the almost 5 million, those are record numbers in history. We've never created jobs to the level that we have now. And before the China plague came in, the China virus, whatever you want to call it, came in, we were beating everybody so badly, including China. We were beating everybody. China had the worst year they had. The tariffs, I've heard them. They had the worst year and we've taken in billions and billions of dollars in tariffs. They had the worst year in 67 years, whereas we had the best year we've ever had. And then we got hit with the plague. But now we're rebuilding it, and it's going much faster than anybody thought possible, a V.
All right, we have less than a minute. You work with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian for criminal justice reform. You also put in your executive order of police reform, but now Kanye apparently is running for president. What's your reaction?
Well, I like his voice being heard, but he's always going to be for us. I mean, he's going to be for us, and his wife is going to be for us. But I like. He
said he's taken off the red hat.
The problem is, he's missed some states, little thing like that. He's missed a few states, like about 12. So you have to do that. But he's a very good guy. He is a person that I get along with very well. And in the end, I think he would support us over anyone else. But, if he does or not, look, we have to stop the radical left from taking over our country, ripping down our great heroes. They're ripping down our heroes. When they take down those statues and those monuments, when they take down George Washington and they take down Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant, and when they take down these people, and abolitionists, people that, think of it, abolitionists, because I think most of them don't even know what they're doing.
Well,
but
I will tell you, Dr. Alveda King.
And we're not going to be Venezuela.
I did like what Dr. Alveda King said, and that one, she's a friend of the program, is that, this garden of heroes that will represent every American from every background. Mr. President, we have gone just a little long here. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you being with us. And 117 days to go. All right.
Thank you very much,
Hannity.com.
John. Thank you.
We're 26 days away. Live free or America dies.